Welcome back, everyone. I am the Depressed Dior, and this is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 11. So I don't know if it was this week, but I've noticed that this new map has come out, the Shipwreck Strait. I don't really have much care for it, and I think that was kind of the general gist for most players, at least from what little I've heard. It has a lot of water, the terrain's not very favorable, which just means it favors those with high mobility, or those with flying, terrain negation, or I guess aquatic in this case. Um, I did get some comments mentioning I could probably get the Langrisser rank, and I'm very flattered. I think generally the win rate for people that go to Langrisser rank tends to be around 40 to 60%. It's a matter of persistence usually, because it's not just, winning some matches and losing some matches. It's winning a number of matches in a row, so you can actually rank up. That being said, my box has significant weaknesses still, which were pointed out in my losses for this week. I'll talk about my losses. I considered showing one of them, but honestly, it was just AoE spam. But the gist is, my opponent, I've mentioned it before, if anyone bans my Rosen Seal first and prevents me from picking her, I'm in for a bad time in most cases. Sissy White is a very good character, has a lot of utility. And having a spare tank that you can summon in, or just someone that could negate guard or dispel some buffs, is very useful, and the act again is really powerful. But any box that I go up against that is banning my Rosen Seal first tends to be a meta box, either a very heavy rush team or a very heavy AoE team, in which case Sissy White can't really combat either of those, and the tank she can summon can't do anything about it, because Assassins bypass guard, and AoE also gets around guard. So it's a bit rough. My second loss that came after it, I mean, the match wasn't too bad considering. I also made some poor choices as far as skills, and it wasn't a complete wash. It's just we traded kills, and my opponent outkilled me. The second loss, my opponent immediately opened with banning Rosen Seal. I looked at his box and I said, no, I've had enough of that for this week, and just conceded during ban pick. And then we got to this match. So this is Drag Rage. Well, actually, I want to go ahead and talk about one thing about the loss, the first loss I had. My opponent's box had Clotaire, Cavalry Juggler, and Vincent, of all things. So even though it was an AoE rush box, it did use characters that I haven't seen in a while. Speaking of, so Drag Rage, we got Emperor Lavina, the biggest jerk ever. Got Clotaire again. We got Autocrato. We haven't seen regular Ares in a while. We got SPD Heart. And then, of course, we have Werner Dime. Is that what he's called now? Since he shares names with the other Werner. And then the rest is kind of just standard stuff you usually see. There's one thing to know is there's not really any primary tanks. Autocrato, and I'm not sure if Emperor Lavina can tank, but I know Autocrato has access to Iron Fist, or whatever it's called, that gives physical guard. And then they have only one healer, which is TRS, and pretty much she's just here to help with the rushing, it looks like. My opponent opened with banning my tank, my one and only tank, so obviously the intention's pretty clear here. They're going to try to rush me down with just high mobility physical assaults here. But since they did ban my Rosen Seal, I banned their Wedum, and I take my Rosen Seal here. And then this was a weird pick. I didn't really understand this one. They banned both my... I understood the Sissy White, because that's potentially another physical tank, but I don't know why they banned my Sylvaria. I'm guessing my opponent maybe just didn't understand what Sylvaria was and didn't want to learn, or had a bad experience with Sylvaria in the past and banned her because of that. Opened with Iron Blood Commander. So I was like, alright, well, I don't want to give any additional mobility, so I got rid of Werner Dime there, and obviously I didn't want to deal with any self-resing nonsense with Lucretia there. I take my Iron Blood Commander. As you can probably tell, I'm kind of going through the usual stuff here. Unfortunately, I can't take Sylvaria because she was already banned. They banned my casters and grab Autocrato. I definitely took some time on figuring out who I was going to pick, because this kind of was an interesting box to deal with, because I didn't need to worry about any sort of counter picks, really. At worst, they could change their troop types to try to be a little bit more, put me at a slight disadvantage, but in most cases it wouldn't really matter. Went ahead and got rid of their teleport and got rid of their Epsilon for a variety of reasons. I went and grabbed Sherry. I haven't used Sherry in a while because usually my opponent bans her very early. So I was like, alright, let's grab SP Sherry. I wasn't too concerned about grabbing Empire buff characters because the only Empire characters that were left was Helena. They already banned Sylvaria. My opponent did get... I was considering grabbing Kyura instead, but I was afraid that my opponent was going to do something like grab Helena and grab Angels, or Sherry and Angels, in which case I was going to have a lot more trouble against them. So I was like, alright. But in case my opponent banned Narm and Kyura, takes Ares. So I was like, alright, gotta deal with that nonsense. It's been a while. Went ahead and banned Helena and their Sherry, and grab my Helena. So at this point, if my opponent is going to do tanking, they will have to use Autocrado, which will at least get rid of one of his skills. They go ahead and get rid of some of my assassins. This was probably the most assassins I've ever been left with, which is pretty crazy. I had 3 assassins and then, of course, Alicia there. Went ahead and they grabbed SP Elwyn. I'm more or less used to SP Elwyn at this point, especially tankless. So I didn't want to deal with any additional mobility, so I got rid of both TRS and Emperor Lavina. For those who don't know, Emperor Lavina's talent allows him to teleport 2 characters 2 spaces, which is pretty significant. So this essentially leaves my opponent with either Clotaire or D-Heart. Since I have Rosenseal, I would prefer they take Clotaire, because then I can just counter the AoE. And I grab Alicia. I didn't really need to worry about guard. I knew my opponent was probably going to take a guard, but I wasn't that concerned about it, because if they're pulled around their guard character, it's not a big deal. Also, Autocrado is... I can kill Autocrado. Anyone with magic can definitely kill Autocrado with not much issue, which I did have Ironblood Commander. And they grab D-Heart. D-Heart's always annoying. He's honestly kind of disappointing overall, but people do still use him. It's just his damage just doesn't keep up. So yeah, our opponent here, Danger Zone. Alright, so yeah, Autocrado took his 3C as Provoke and Iron Fist. So yeah, exactly what I expected. Took Lava Titans as his tank, or as his troop choice. Elwyn, standard kit with unicorns. Ironblood Commander did not bring attack buff. I guess one thing to note is Elwyn buffs himself. Autocrado doesn't. I mean, he does do Iron Fist, which does increase attack. So yeah, he does have something that increases his attack. Ares can buff himself using his weird charging move, or whatever it's called. D-Heart has access to Strike, as well as Oath of Karma, which he can use to buff Ironblood Commander. So they do have coverage. The Ironblood Commander is going with the Amazon Champions, probably to try to counter the Helena. Ares went with Angels, which I didn't know Ares had Angels. And then D-Heart went with Fairy Spirit Prophets, which honestly is his best choice for the most part. Unfortunately, the big issue with D-Heart is after he uses his 3C, he's kind of stuck, because Fairy Prophets are ranged. So if you attack with them in melee, they are far less effective. And even with the 3C, he tends to just not do a lot of damage. 3C only does 1.3 times damage and all that good stuff. Anyway, as for what we got on our side, we got Rosenseal with Shrine Maidens, Sherry with Griffin Knights, just pure offense. I didn't bring her guard bypass. Ironblood Commander, I brought her mass attack and stuck with Sandsea Mercenaries. Alicia, full offense kit with Firebrand Snipers. And then Helena, I brought Bone Dinos and then her standard kit. Alright, so with all that, so as always, I need to kind of measure where my opponent's going, because my opponent technically outranges me at the moment. So the good news is Ironblood's mobility buff really only applies to Autocrado, and even with the +2 movement, he can only get to here or there. And then assuming he has the range extending weapon, his 3C goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to there. So As long as I stay out of range of this, I'm not going to get hit all of a sudden. Also, if he does it now, he wouldn't have his attack buff. So I went ahead and passed in place. I took a while kind of considering where I can actually position. I wanted to try to get initiative on in the next round as much as possible. But what I could have done is I could have moved closer and try to get a better position so I can set up with Ironblood Commander. The problem with that though was 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, I can get Sherry up to here safely. Ares can go 1, 2, 3, 4 to here. So technically he can already AoE if he has it. I don't think he has the AoE actually. No, he just has the single target, so he doesn't have to worry about the. Well, actually, he can't even AoE because the AoE is point blank. I keep forgetting how Ares works, but essentially he will do his charge move, and when he does it and he attacks, he'll get to grab everyone within 2 range or 2 rings. So yeah, that's as far as Ares goes. Is about here, and then D-Heart here can go 1, 2, 3 to there. I think that's right. Yeah, he can go all the way to there. And then L1 can go 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the problem, is if I move forward, I can try getting set up here, but it's not going to really do much. So, like I said, I was just trying to count steps and figure out where I can actually attack. My opponent's being pretty cautious as well, very much outside my range at the moment. So I moved here because this is safe for Sherry. And something you might not know about Ironblood Commander's formation thing is it's not a V formation. It's just diagonals. So this here is a valid formation for her offensive formation. It doesn't have to be a flying V. All right, so yeah, they got set up down here. Not a big deal. So I went ahead and used this opportunity to go ahead and get the formation up, get mass attack up. The AoEs were concerning. So I was probably not going to be able to spare a turn to do faction buff, because the faction buff is only going to hit 3 people. And I'm probably going to need to do crystal healing first. In any case, this is Sherry's range now, still outside of range. I can get within range to attack with Alicia, but it'll just be hitting the tank, which Autocrata can probably take it. Also, I didn't really talk about the faction buff here, or the pseudo faction buff here, Oath of Karma. It does buff D-Heart himself as well, so he's fully buffed. Okay, so get set up there. So I was like, alright, well, I'll go get healed up. So my plan was already to go ahead and kill Elwyn. I don't know if my opponent misplayed, but I can get to here. Chivalry, which will put terrain all around here, give me free movement to here. And then the 3 movement I have left can go right to here, and I can attack Elwyn. So even with the self-res, I should be able to kill him. But it didn't matter because Ares moved there, so he doesn't even have a self-res. So move in. Yeah, having initiative in these kill trades is pretty important. Yeah, super overkill. But it does put terrain everywhere, which is nice. Alright, and then Ares is like, alright, well, I take your Helena, and I'm going to raise you an Ares. Goes in and kills my Sherry, which was a bit costly, because she does have the act again. Teleports these two together. And this is why I went ahead and put the crystal healing up, just in case. He did get some terrain effects, not a big deal. He's flying, and I have Alicia literally right here, so this Ares is dead. My Helena is most likely dead. And then Ironblood Commander is kind of out of position right now, and is within range of D-Heart. So I need to do something with Ironblood Commander, or else D-Heart's going to do stuff. So right now I can get to here, and then I can get within range to... Well, I can either kill the Ares, or I can go and kill Autocrata. So I pick Autocrata. I have infantry troops versus spears, and I have magic damage for from Ironblood Commander. And it seems like Ironblood Commander by herself is more than enough. Heals Helena, but it's not going to be enough. Yeah, even her by herself was enough to kill. Get some debuffs there. Now the big issue here is I don't have initiative anymore. The last turn's going to be mine, which means they'll go first next round. So I was fully expecting to get killed here. Doesn't do enough. It was close, but not enough. And thankfully I don't need to worry about Lion's Roar. Unfortunately I can't do anything to really support her. So I went ahead and did the faction buff. This was purely just so I can potentially debuff or remove buffs from my opponent when they kill her. That's pretty much all I could really do. So strike. Who's in for melee. Still had his attack buff. Kill all majority of the troops. And then I go in and finish off Iron Blood Commander here. I probably didn't need 3C, but I wanted to play it safe. Especially since D-Heart's so weakened now. Yep, and at this point my opponent gave up. I had Extreme Magic Bow on Alicia, so D-Heart would probably get himself killed attacking Alicia. And as you can see, D-Heart just can't do damage is the problem. He's definitely very dangerous if he's able to get kill. He's super dangerous because he can bypass guard and essentially has 10 range coverage with his strike and the 2 range from his attack. But if he can't, he is just completely worthless. I mean, he can definitely buff female characters, which is always helpful. But yeah, kind of a neat little match. Got to see some characters we haven't seen in a while. Characters I used to hate a lot, like Ares and stuff, are far less of a pain anymore, but it is what it is. So that being said, yeah, as you can see, there's the 2 matches. I'll show the box for the one I actually played out, but I'm not going to show it because it's just AoE spam. So yeah, this was my opponent. Had a Vincent, Emperor Lavina, Ares. Yeah, you can see it's just full on rush. A lot of old faces there, and they banned my Rosenseal first, and I kind of just get screwed at that point. I think what I need to do though is I need to drop Sissy White. She's very useful in slower fights, but since my box is not really about slower fights, well, I'll take that back. My box definitely favors slower fights, but my opponents prefer faster fights in most cases. So in those situations, I kind of need someone that's a bit more, someone that ramps up faster. That's kind of the biggest issue with Sissy White. I can't do an act again on turn 1 with Sissy White. It's impossible. Even with the exclusive, at best she'll have 4 coins at the first round, and you need 5 to do the act again. The main benefit, of course, is her act again has a 30% attack buff attached to it. And with the teddy bear, you can make it last 2 rounds instead of 1. But most of the time, by turn 2, shit has usually hit the fan. So with that in mind, I need to drop Sissy White and replace her with someone else. I think I tried Elma at one point, but Elma was not working for me either. I mean, I initially wanted to grab her because she can counter. She's somewhat of a counter against AoE boxes, but I think more than likely, we need to bring back Liana. With Liana, I won't have the mass attack buff. I won't be able to provide the mobility buff that Sissy White can. That's the other issue. Is Sissy White? Part of the reason I brought in Sissy White was because she could potentially provide a mobility buff. The problem is that will cost 3 coins, and it's also not super reliable for me. So, with that in mind, I think I'm better off just taking Liana. In which case, I can just bring Gospel or something else. And of course, I got Act Again, Prayer. Her passive literally can heal, and she can passively dispel debuffs and things like that. So I think that's probably a better call. And we can also bring in Ode to Creation if need be. So we could do something like remove this, do something like this maybe. That'll give a bit more flexibility on healing. And then, of course, I can make the Ultra Creation last longer with the plushie and all that good stuff. So I think I'm going to go with this in the future. That and, like, I don't know what the ratio is, but it feels like 90% of my matches I am player 2. And being player 2 without the act again is not fun. So being player 2 and then being, having my Rose and Seal ban is just the worst ever. So being able to force my opponent to either pick, hey, get rid of my Rose and Seal, or you have to get rid of my Leona, will hopefully give a little bit of pause from them just immediately banning my Rose and Seal. Like I said, this is the only issue when they ban my Rose and Seal, so I need to get something that's more threatening than Sissy White, which I think Leona could fill that. So yeah, I think we will go ahead and take Leona and see how that plays out. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, my other option, I always try to figure out if there's a way to actually use Imelda. Imelda does provide mobility and a buff that overlap that actually can stack with other buffs. She does have mass attack, but she's not. If I get hit with anything that negates healing or something like that, she's kind of, or debuffs in general, she's kind of screwed in that front. Her passive though is really nice. The extra unit damage is super good, but I don't think I can reliably get Imelda to actually get things done. Like, best case scenario with Imelda would be, I mean, with her exclusive, I can at least protect the people from fixed damage, which is also good. I mean, it's something to consider, but I'm probably going to go ahead and stick with Leona. I only have one more match for the season, so we'll see how Leona plays. I may consider trying Imelda later, just to try something outside the norm. But for right now, yeah, the main issue is, of course, in order to bring Queen's Whip, I would have to give up something else. I mean, I could get rid of maybe Mass Attack, but then I would have to also get rid of either Regrowth or Mass Heal. So her Queen's Whip benefit would be far less useful, unfortunately. So, I mean, even then, it would still be somewhat useful, because you can do Queen's Gauntlet with Mass Attack, and those will stack. But again, it's that situation again where that's the same issue I had with Sissy White, is I don't have enough skill slots. You only have 3 skill slots, and then only so many points to spend, and so you kind of have to pick and choose. And a lot of times I don't pick the right things. Anyway, yeah, we'll go ahead and stick with Leona. We'll see how that plays out, and we'll see how the last match of the season goes. So I'm the Depressed Hero. This is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 11. I'll see you guys later.